This is the Horror Scouts podcast, and we are about to review Sky Sharks. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us on the Horror Scouts podcast. My name is Mike. I am joined by Brian.
Hello.
And Nick.
Hey.
And we are your hosts and troop leaders here at Horror Scouts. If you're watching us on YouTube, more specifically youtube.com/@horrorscouts, and you like this episode, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And if you're listening on the audio version on a podcast service, we appreciate a review if you're so inclined. And last thing before anything else, all of our reviews contain spoilers. So if you don't want Sky Sharks ruined for you, go watch the movie and then come on back for the conversation.
Be hard pressed to spoil this one, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's all in the title.
Okay, so here we are. This has been years in the making for us.
Yeah.
We were saying before we hit record, like we can't ever remember how we heard about this film. But it took forever to actually become available. And it just sounds like the dumbest thing. And we were just like, we have to watch it. I have to watch it.
Yeah. And guess what? It was the dumbest thing. And we're questioning our reasons why we had to watch this.
Yeah. So before we jump into the review, anything going on? Anything
horror related?
No, nothing horror related. I'm excited because, and this is also a little bit of a plug for our Discord. If you use Discord and you want to join us, there's a link in the comments section on YouTube or in the description on the audio version. If you want to join us over there, and we just have a few threads. The favorite being our trailer thread. So anytime we find a trailer of a horror movie that's doesn't look like absolute garbage, we'll post it there. So recently, so this is tying into what I was getting to. We got the trailer for Evil Dead Rise recently. Mm-hmm. I am so fucking excited.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to do it justice.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to ruin the experience, but my one skepticism is that in the trailer, it looks like they're doing the exact same thing, just in a different location. And I don't want that.
But what?
Expand the lore.
Okay.
Like the show did.
All right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And you're moving out of the isolated cabin that was literally in the middle of nowhere. You have more to play with. And I'm assuming they're going to. You can't put this in a condo or apartment building and not touch on that. But like, it should at least set up to like, it's taking over the city. Like, just fucking do what you do. Go for it. Mm-hmm. Lead to what would be like the Army of Darkness spiritual successor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Like they, made a point leading up to it, like saying like, oh, we've changed locations. We're going to be in the city. Strangely enough, Scream is headed to the city as well this year. But yeah, the trailer does make it feel like, we're not in the cabin. We're trapped in an apartment.
Right.
But I mean, even if it's just expanding to the rest of the apartment building, I think that could be fun because you get more people involved.
Yeah. I mean, look, it looks like dark and badass and just as gritty as what came before it. So I'm excited for that. I'm not trying to shit on it, but
yeah,
I just hope they do go that little step extra.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that they just immediately it was a red band trailer. They didn't do a regular one, and then 2 days later drop the red band. It's like, no, there's no other way to advertise this movie.
Yeah,
and they know their audience.
Yeah, I was just so hoping it was gonna be within the same tone of Fede's version, and it really does feel like he's not involved with this one, but it feels like he is.
Yeah, agreed.
So, and it's like right near my birthday, so it's like happy birthday to me. Mm-hmm. And then we also got the trailer for Renfield, which is very different tone, but that's also like the week before. I'm excited about that.
Well, it's speaking of similar tone, and you mentioned it, the Scream trailer. I mean, that looks like they expand the world. You're in the city. They're taking a different direction with it, but I commented on this on the Discord, but they don't mention in the trailer any of the meta commentary about horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, they better not have removed that, because that's immediate point deduction. Like, that's your shtick.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I can't imagine they would. That's sort of like the whole thing of the Scream franchise.
right.
Like, from the jump.
Right. But and maybe I disconnected. I don't know. I don't think I'm that disconnected from horror. I watch a lot of older stuff, but what is it? Like, seems to be maybe heading in a direction that horror movies are getting darker and grittier. I mean, look how successful Terrifier 2 was. I mean, in the grand scheme of things. And, getting more violent, the Evil Dead coming out, looking at even the Scream movie itself looks darker. So maybe there's something there with that. I was just surprised in the first trailer. There's a certain lack of like tongue-in-cheek humor and the complete not mention of the meta commentary. I was like, oh, again, could use a bit of a direction shift, but you can't remove that. That's your point. That's the reason you exist. That and apparently give Courtney Cox paychecks for more Botox. But
it was the one like reveal the scene where they've got like a freaking museum to all the past.
It looked like the Batcave.
Right.
Or like Iron Man's, where there's like all the armor suits.
Yeah. Yeah, it looked pretty cool. So I just wanted to talk about that. Any Evil Dead news, I need to chat about it at least a little bit.
Yeah.
So if there's nothing else, we have to do what we came here for, although we might not want to.
No, but this is the fun part.
Yeah. We endured so they don't have to.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we mentioned this episode, we checked out the film Sky Sharks. I believe it's listed as a 2020 film. It's not brand new, but now you can find it online. Show of hands if you watched it with ads.
This is the first movie I've watched with ads ever.
Me too, and I was happy for them.
I couldn't justify paying $4.
Yeah, They gave my brain a break, like a minute and a half every so often.
And you watched this solo, right?
Yeah,
because Brian and I both watched it with another person, which I think probably made it more enjoyable. I don't know. I didn't have a great time, so. Not sure there, but I imagine watching the solo was a total slog.
Yeah.
And watching it with somebody while having some beer was definitely helped, for sure.
Yeah, I think you had the best situation out of all of us. Okay, just a little bit of info about the movie before we start laying into it. It was written by A.D. Morell, Mark Face, and Karsten Face. Directed by Mark Face. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. And starring Thomas Morris as Dr. Klaus Richter, Eva Haberman as Diabla, and Barbara N as Angelique, and a bunch of other people, but those are our main three.
A bunch of other people.
The synopsis is deep in the ice of the Antarctic, a team of geologists uncover an old Nazi laboratory still intact where dark experiments had occurred. Wow, I butchered that sentence. In order to conquer the world, the Nazis created modified sharks who were able to fly. First order of business, yay, nay, or just okay?
Nay.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious nay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess the ultimate question is why.
Right. Why is the question I asked myself for an hour and 46 minutes, which is the runtime of this movie, which is also like, why? Why are we so long? It doesn't have to be. This could have been like at least 25 minutes shorter. Like unnecessary. It's not like they had the big budget with like crazy effect sequences that really needed to trail on longer because they all looked bad. Like just, it's not like it had some deep, ridiculous plot that needed time to be told. It had almost none. Like why? Doesn't have to be that long.
But that was also, I'm going to say biggest, though might be a stretch. The biggest problem, the biggest fault in this movie was them trying to give a richer backstory and deeper plot.
Yeah, I agree. For multiple reasons, I think that is the biggest issue with this movie. The first one of those reasons being they spent a lot of time developing lore that they immediately ignored, or that they didn't focus on the right part of a lore that a viewer might be interested in. More on that in a minute. But also they didn't I don't know how to word that. Like, no, I lost my train of thought there. Sorry. But the biggest issue with the lore being focused on is like, so we get twice in the movie, we get flashbacks to like World War II era, Nazis developing this crazy technology and this drug that I can't remember the 3-letter acronym for, M7B or something like that.
Sure.
That brings their fighters back from the dead, which problems with that anyways, because they're just showing it gassing like fields of dead soldiers, but it only works on the Nazis.
Yeah, that's one of the things I wrote down. It's like, question, I don't get it.
Yeah, I have issues with your lore, but okay, cool. So it only brings back Nazis. Great. But they give you this whole backstory of the development of it and the scientists involved. And lo and behold, our main character is one of the scientists involved. And like, yada, yada, yada. What they don't focus on is how they turned sharks into air-breathing flying machines. They don't touch on it. It's just like, here's this whole development of zombies are a thing now. Well, you've seen zombie movies. Here's how we did it. Also, it only works on Nazis and sharks fly. And then they move on. It's like, but the movie is Sky Sharks, and they don't touch on it, and they don't care. What
they mentioned like the anti-gravity suit thing they put on the sharks. And honestly, I didn't even think about the whole breathing aspect at that point.
Right.
Yeah, me neither.
I assumed that came from the zombie thing.
But the sharks aren't dead, in theory?
I mean, they could be if they're brought back to life with that and controlled. I mean,
so the sharks are definitely Nazis too, then. Because it only works on Nazis. They set that up as lore.
Duh.
Yeah.
Well, you can also inject it.
But
because it doesn't just work on Nazis.
Right, that's later lore.
Sorry.
But they also, the sharks still breathe in the water because they feed that scientist to the pool of sharks, who are then later saddled up and are flying. So they are able to breathe both things, but they never touch on either of them or the mechanics of how they fly. But
again, they could have spent 30 seconds on the anti-gravity contraption thingy, but just said we injected the sharks with the N75, whatever the fuck it is, zombie thing. Like, that solves it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But they didn't do that.
Further, though, of the why, even if you did explain sharks, why are sharks the ultimate flying combat machine? They never get to that. That feels like a logic leap that I'm not following, because planes are made of metal and sharks are made of flesh. I don't get it.
God, yeah.
I think you're thinking a little too hard.
I am. However, that was the point that I lost before on the lore, is they spent a lot of time trying to make sense of a ridiculous movie of Sky Sharks without paying it off. But what that does is gives it not the dumb, campy, like, this is going to be a laugh riot, ridiculous movie, like sci-fi special, sci-fi channel special, like a Sharknado sort of thing.
Right.
They tried to give it more story and more meaning and more background to it, but they focused on the wrong thing. So it left it not being like an enjoyable romp. It left it being like watching someone fail at trying to make a movie that they think is supposed to be better than it is. And that didn't work for me.
Yeah, that's exactly
fair.
Like if they just didn't try with lore and there's like, yeah, whatever, we don't know either. Sharks fly. Like, I'm like, all right, I'm here for this. But they didn't do that.
Yeah, that's like the exact reason why, like, one of my favorites is Zombievers.
Oh yeah.
Because it's just dumb. Versus this, like you said, like, they're just trying. And the amount of work that went into the CG on this movie. Like everything is CG. Like
All of it.
it doesn't look good, but they spent forever on it.
They did, however, not as many as they could have. Some instances mix it with real effects, real blood effects and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, my biggest criticism on a lot of things when they use CG gore is like, why'd you do that? Here, I knew that was going to happen. I was actually pleasantly surprised to see non-CG gore.
Yeah.
And there are a couple, like, again, all things considered, solid scenes of that. But I don't know if you guys caught this in the opening credits. Tom Savini was a special effects supervisor on this movie.
What?
Yeah. He stooped that low. I mean, his supervisor might have been like, he said 2 lines to somebody and they gave him credits, but like his name was still in the opening credits of the movie.
Huh. Yeah, I didn't catch that.
There was one of those scenes that was great it was actually the sex scene in the bathroom.
Yeah. Yeah, that
with
periscope
the head exploded in the periscope.
Yeah.
That was fucking rad.
Yep. That was the best part of the movie. Had nothing to do with sharks. That was the best part of the movie.
Foreshadowing, that might be that visual right there might be the only reason this is getting a badge at the end of this episode.
I didn't know if this would be getting badges. I thought it might be another sad kangaroo, but we'll cross that bridge a little later.
Right. The whole thing just feels like a bunch of friends who had different specialties. You got some special effects people, you got some digital effects people. They just got together and like, let's make something dumb. And then it got way out of hand and they went too far.
Yeah. The problem is you had a couple people that had those specialties and they skipped the writing part.
Yeah.
Or they found somebody who was too good of a writer that tried to give it this rich backstory and tapestry, and eventually budget got in the way, and they're like, we can't, just cut it down, pare it down. And they didn't pare it down properly to give it the dumb, funny, schlocky tone that a movie named Sky Shark should have.
Yeah, that almost feels accurate. That they tried. That guy was too good for what they had.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because like it was overwritten.
That's generous.
Yeah, it was overwritten.
Yeah.
Again, it's all within context here.
Yeah. To touch on. Sorry, just to touch on those 2 flashbacks again. I think those were the best parts and most well done and cohesive parts of the movie, especially the first flashback.
Yeah.
Like it at least felt like you were watching a normal movie. You know, and then like doing the little video, you know, he turns on the reel-to-reel projector and they do that little animated thing. I thought that was animated well. Like
that was, but like that was a version of animation that couldn't possibly have existed in the 1940s.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Like, what are you turning on? That's nothing. Sure. Like this is good. It doesn't belong. Yeah. The biggest problem with those flashbacks, in that they told a story and they worked, was that immediately after coming out of them, they just shot themselves in the foot and had nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
Like, so the second one, I'm jumping way ahead and spoiling the ending here. There's a program that was engineered by the US military after the big bad German guy who developed the serum that brought zombies back, to do the dead flesh force, right? The DFF, that's what they were calling it. That would take a person and make them unkillable and controllable by using a corpse to make them able to have a neural link and be controlled remotely by somebody else, to make the ultimate super soldier that, you know, could take 1 billion bullets but still function like a human, not a mindless zombie.
Yeah.
Right. There you go. So they set up that whole thing. And when you get to the end of the movie and there's like 20 something sky sharks that are taking out the world, our big bad guy's like, surprise, I didn't fully shelve that project and I can control something and save the day. The thing he controls is not a person. He somehow neural links to controlling the biggest fucking shark that has ever existed, but it has to it had to have been a living thing at one point in time. Where did this like 10 times the size of a megalodon flying shark come from? That he just like pulled from the basement and was like, yeah, I got one of these too. Mine's bigger. That doesn't work at all. It has nothing to do with like you set up this pitching the story to it, showing the whole background, the development, how it works, that the two people are connected. And then immediately you're like, yeah, nah, he just mind controls a big shark.
What now? This is my lack of memory. Was he controlling the shark or controlling the guy flying the shark? Because all the Nazi flying sharks had guys controlling them.
They never showed a guy flying the big shark.
Yeah.
It was him in his like ridiculous Windows 95 CG effect room, wearing a ridiculous monocle with a reticle, and then just the biggest damn shark just eating everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is a visual that I feel like deserves some acknowledgement. Like, not only do we have these sharks with like metal shit strapped to them flying through the sky, but they have a zombie Nazi like just fully standing up like on this little platform thing on their back, like some stupid 80s cartoon. Like it feels like it's out of He-Man or something.
Yeah.
And just like this the first second I saw it, I couldn't fucking believe it. And of course, because the movie opens with them like attacking this plane, and like the zombies just like can jump off and of course land on the plane and then jump out the window and perfectly grab onto the handle and back onto the shark, like this beautiful ballet of death. But fuck, man, just so many head scratching things.
Like when the movie ended, my wife turned to me and was like, everything the sharks did could have been replaced with a hoverboard. They don't have to be sharks. They never factor into the plot whatsoever. This is a movie about flying zombies. You could have given them like a Silver Surfer surfboard and just used technology instead of flying sharks. They have nothing to do with the plot.
Yeah, because do the normal size sharks ever bite anything other than like flying body parts?
Well, so here's the thing. Yes. In the opening montage of death and destruction, this is my other huge problem with this movie. There's a lot of them. In the middle of them demolishing that plane, one of the sharks just like boops it with its nose and tears a gaping fucking hole in the side of it. Big enough that that plane was going down no matter what. Yeah. Regardless of zombies, regardless of removing the engines from it, like whatever. There was a massive hole in the side of it because it just bonked its nose into it. If they're that powerful and strong of sharks, why zombies? They're not necessary. One shark takes down the plane. Okay, cool. You don't need zombies at all to do any of that. If they're that it'd be like driving a tank to your enemy's fort and then getting out and attacking it. Like, you had the fucking tank. What are you doing? It doesn't make any sense.
Oh, God. No.
Absolutely useless.
That is very true.
Yeah, like just irredeemable. Pick a lane and stick with it. You either have a delivery method of shark that can fly and bring the bad guy to the thing, or they are the weapon. Well, they did neither well.
Right.
I also think the other thing missing from this movie, or from the plot of using sky sharks, right? If you're going to bother to have sky sharks, that can do that.
Right. The name of the movie.
Right. Yeah. Why?
If you're going to bother.
Right. We see them taking down a passenger plane and going after another passenger plane that was used as bait, only to be attacked by a military plane that they barely attacked back. And if I'm remembering correctly, it's because they were, everything's connected to everything. And they were like stopping that with the radar thing on the ship, or like because
truly don't know. I watched and I was just like, I don't know what's happening.
Because I'm like, why aren't they taking down this ship with that ease? But they like barely attacked the fucking thing.
Right.
Which they might have justified during the movie, but it's like, you needed a dogfight that was like fighter jets and fucking sharks, which, spoiler, the sharks would get torn apart. Unless, one or two here could go bite on a plane or something, but like...
Well, I mean, they could turn invisible, Brian. They had
Oh, yeah,
I
there's-
forgot
I
they had
forgot
cloaking technology.
I forgot
They
about
could be
that whole-
everywhere.
Forgot about that whole thing. Oh, that's what the ship was doing. It was blocking that cloaking technology, I think.
Right. So then our big shark could eat them all, I think.
Right, but they didn't
Is
have
that-
because they didn't have guns and they would just shoot down the sharks, as you pointed out, their flesh.
Right.
Yeah, but like a scene, I guess they didn't have the budget. Maybe if they did fewer flashbacks, a couple shitty looking dogfighting ships to just have a firefight with the
sharks, with the main
The
part
flying
of the movie.
sharks, yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
I mean, they
Like-
might as well just strap laser beams to their head and spooked Austin Powers from that point on. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, like the intro was bad. Like I texted you guys after watching the intro. It's just like, this is already probably the worst thing I've ever watched. That when it cut away from a fight in the sky with them taking out the passenger plane, I was briefly relieved to be like, okay, cool. We're gonna pump the brakes on the CG a little bit, get some plot, maybe, dial things back a little bit. 5 minutes later, it's like, just put me back in the sky, please. Like, it's so much worse down here.
Yeah.
Just brutal.
Yeah, I was just left confused for the majority of the movie. Like even like the whole like the tagline and everything about you expect it to be this team of people and they're in the Antarctic and they discover whatever like Alien, going onto the ship and finding the eggs and all this stuff.
right.
And it's barely about that. And
Yeah.
so the movie opens with the attack on the plane,
Mhm.
but the whole thing is supposed to be that these scientists find and disturb whatever, and then the Nazis
Right.
you would think would come out.
Right. But it just
But-
starts with them.
Yeah, so like what they never explain what triggered them to resurface all these years later.
And also, like, further than that, generally to me, if something is found in Antarctica, and this is me making some logic leaps, it's like, and well, it is and it isn't, because when our scientist Diabla, one of the Richter family, the
Mhm.
three people that work in this huge defense company, when she's getting like snowmobiled in, her driver is like very bluntly talking about global warming and the effects of things melting, which you lead to kind of be like the establishing like, oh, so this was frozen under layers of ice and it thawed and like yada
Right.
yada yada, we found it, whatever, even though we've now already seen the sharks attacking. But also, like, World War II wasn't that long ago in the grand scheme of things that we've had enough
No.
of an ice age that, like, if there was a big lab there, it would have been buried in ice and then melted back again.
Yeah,
Like,
and
it
also-
hasn't been that long. That's
the f-
nothing.
What the fuck was this ship lab thing doing in the Arctic? It wasn't Antarctica, but
Right.
it was still the
Oh,
Arctic,
I
which
said Antarctica. I'm sorry. Yeah,
is
right.
fine. But I mean, the war didn't really take place that close to it. I'm sure some countries were up there, but like to get high enough to even potentially be frozen in something, I don't think the Germans went there unless they intentionally started there and we never knew about it.
Well, they put their lab up there because nobody would bother them
Big
while they worked
secret
on
project.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And then and then so like we got our scientists going into the building, after this gratuitous, hey, look, boobs, this is your first set of boobs for the movie, great. And then they have this like room of just like soldiers just hanging, like the pods in the Matrix, just
Yep.
endless fields,
Mhm.
and so that also makes me think about that little bit of lore, like we talked in the beginning about, okay, you've got the zombies, and then are the shark zombies, but they also point out at some point that the serum, WD-40, whatever they called it, like technically that's not what creates the zombies. It's like the dusting of the fields.
But I thought that was the same thing.
Yeah, I thought that was.
But
too.
this
Maybe I'm
is-
wrong.
like periodically you see like our main character Clausen in the flashbacks and stuff and some other higher ups, they're injecting themselves with it because this is what's supposed to make the super soldier. And they also sneak in, but it doesn't work on women. It instantly turns women into zombies.
Right.
What?
Right, but that
plot
was
point
good. Right, but it was good because then they could put women in the front line, which actually justified a comment I had made to myself earlier in the movie when they showed a female Nazi soldier attacking Diablo. I'm like, pretty sure the Nazis didn't have female soldiers. And I was like, oh, you actually justified something a question I had.
Yeah.
Good on you.
But like, they just as easily could have been like, hey, we have a super soldier serum and we inject anybody with it and they're fully capable of joining the ranks. Like, it's like, no, because we want to have our second gratuitous boob scene in the shower but we can't just show that for no reason. She's got to be turning into a zombie. Like,
which, okay, she turns into a zombie. Fine. And when the military group is flying out there to take on our Sky Sharks, her dad, right, owner of Richter thing, gives the guy a sealed box. Like, if she turns into a zombie, use this. He has a fucking antidote. Like, hey, you know what the sharks apparently need to fly is riders who are zombies. Maybe just use that and gas them like you did to make them to begin with. Problem solved. Like, you have an antidote already. What the fuck are you doing?
And actually, the first gratuitous set of boobs was when the dad, the German father on the plane in the beginning, was watching, was it Sky Frogs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I read this afterwards. I'm sure you all turned it off before it too. After the credits, there was apparently a fake trailer for Sky Frogs.
Oh, God.
For the film that guy was watching.
Hey, I'm not going to go back and watch
stick around for that.
I didn't go back either, but I was like, okay. Again, budget money that could have gone into the movie. There were a couple, I mean, besides some things just being laughable in the movie, like when they get to the Arctic, there's the sex scene, get the set of boobs. But then after the guy gets killed, she's getting up, she's wearing socks and a hat and carrying a machine gun and like running through the hallways screaming. I was like, what the fuck is going on? I thought that was hilarious. But some of the lines, especially from a guy you did not mention in the credits, Tony Todd.
Why is that's another why? Why is he in this movie? He's an actor. What's he doing?
Well, did you catch who, speaking of actors in this movie, did you catch who the drunk guy on the plane was?
No.
The drunk Asian guy? He was the dude that played Shang Tsung in the first Mortal Kombat movie.
Oh my God.
And he's showed up in he's been in a whole bunch of other things since then. But I'm watching this going, this looks really familiar. And Rich, the guy I was watching this with, caught him from something else he's watched. But yeah.
That's funny. One real quick, another one I caught. So we get Tony Todd, who's like the hard ass U.S. general guy who was sitting at the president's desk apparently or something.
Right. Yeah.
But then, they've got this video call with all these important people that they need for the mission from around the world. So Tony shows up and I go, oh, Tony Todd. Next person who shows up is this small blonde woman, like German, I think, or some sort of Germanic.
I think she's supposed to be an American senator, but she was in Germany for some reason. Like, that's what I caught, but it didn't make sense.
But she had the accent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was very confused.
Anyway, I saw her, took me 2.5 seconds, and I said, that's Marcy from Married with Children.
No.
The neighbor.
That can't be.
Yep, it is. I checked. I was like, what? She just came out of nowhere.
Well, then you also had because we've seen a bunch of other things, Father Rodriguez, who's played a gangbanger in like a bazillion and a half movies.
I did like him. His little back and forth with the nun gave us my favorite line from the movie, which is Satan eats pizza.
I liked I think it was Tony Todd's line toward the end of the movie when they defeated him. He goes, "It's raining fucking barbecued catfish."
Yeah, I feel like he took this role to try to get a motherfucking snakes off this motherfucking plane line in there. It feels like that's what he was going for with that delivery. Wasn't worth it, man.
And because like he's only ever on the video call, it was like they emailed him the script and they said, "You got a camera at home? Okay.
Yeah, that's
you got one of those like pull down green screens. Okay, stand in front of it, deliver all your lines, and we'll handle the rest."
There was another line. I think it was during that first phone call. It was the American Marine or whoever it was, special ops guy. They said it looks like a goddamn Nazi reunion tour.
And there's like someone like being tortured behind him or something.
Oh yeah, that was one of the things they call in Mexico. Like somebody's being fucking tortured in the background. I'm like, what? We're not going to acknowledge this is happening. Okay. There was a couple cutesy jokes like in the really shitty looking airport. The dude is reading 50 Sharks of Grey book. But one of the guys had a military helmet and it said "Born to Kill" on it, like Full Metal Jacket, but they wrote "Re." It was one of the Nazis. They said "Re" in blood, so it was "Reborn to Kill." I was like, that's clever. I'll give you that one too. It's not making up for this movie. But what I think might have been the most painful part of this movie to actually watch was that fucking news report with the American black news reporter. What was that? Those were somehow the worst delivered lines. Like, I got the kind of pause thing, but like, Richard, like, oh my God, what the fuck is going on?
Spit it out. Cut away.
And it went on for too long.
Yeah.
Too long.
Yeah, like we're saying, if this was like a true, purposefully dumb, dopey movie that you just dumb romp, I think we said.
Yeah.
Then you would have been like, oh, he's doing it on purpose. Great, good job. But this was like, are you trying? What?
Yeah.
What did I just see?
Yeah, like, oh my God, that was so bad. And then you had the ad for the DFF gov that came out of nowhere.
Right. That was like a total non sequitur. It was like, here's a commercial for a thing that will be foreshadowing. We didn't know how else to like, shoehorn this fucker in there. Here you go.
Yeah, because they had done the other ad for Richter Corporation or whatever it was that like segued. Like it somehow that worked. This one was like so jarring.
So many instances of reusing like the same stock footage, like city, like wide nighttime city shot.
Yeah.
But okay, to that point, the opening scene where what's her face, the one daughter Angelique is driving in, who's driving like a Lamborghini in New York. No, you're not, because that thing's getting eaten by potholes. But that looked like dreamy 80s style Tokyo more than it did New York.
Yeah.
In even a New York distant future or alternate future. Like
cyber New York.
Yeah, this whole thing had like a filter over it. Like they were like, well, maybe we can blend in the CG if we just affect everything. And I got this like Zack Snyder Sucker Punch vibe from it.
Yeah, I got which iPhone was it? The 10 that had the moving background with like the circles on it, like that would move around.
Oh,
every time they're standing around talking there, it just looked like that fucking wallpaper from your phone was like in front of their faces.
Yeah, the scene. So that whole time where we're getting the backstory and they're sitting at the table with their sushi and wine, it was like that background combined with like Michael Bay's lens flare was like every time they hit present day, it's like it was literally covering people. It was very distracting.
It's like, here's a yellow circle on their face. Why? We don't know. Because future?
Because future.
Science?
He's a scientist.
Yeah.
I also want to know how that one plane didn't go down sooner when they fucking took the cable, like
I
that
was just gonna
razor
bring that
cable,
up.
and skinned off half of which was hilarious.
That was a fun moment, though. Like, the Periscope is number one. Number
yeah.
two is the, like, it's not quite is it considered decapitating if you're taking off half the head?
Sure.
I mean, I'll give it to you.
Okay, so like
For lack of a better
decapitating
term.
a whole plane of people in one swipe with just that razor wire down the length of a plane, that was pretty clever.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, some of the deaths, some of the kills there was some clever things in there, CG'd or not. They went for the gore when they actually had the scenes for it. But there needed to be a lot more of that.
Yeah.
Like something in the middle of the movie to do that. The action sequences were Nazi Germany flashbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And they were nothing compared to the bloodbaths we had at the beginning and the end. Yeah, this was a fucking hot mess.
That's the perfect phrase for it. Big, hot, Nazi, soupy mess.
Yeah. And our complaint is that there wasn't enough of like a bloody mess. Like, that's the kind of funny part of this. Like, you were so close to doing it right, but somehow you fucked it up by trying too hard.
Right. You needed to care a little bit less.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a sequel set up.
Yep.
You watched that, right? The mid-credit scene?
Mm-hmm. What was it again?
Okay. It was I think it was supposed to be that guy's wife, Dr. Klaus's wife, like, was holding a rally of all the Nazi zombies, and someone was there, so it was like setting up for a sequel.
Oh, okay. I didn't even get that
there
far.
may or may not have been sharks in. Like,
there were no sharks in that particular scene.
Yeah, I didn't think so. So, like, but hey, Dead Snow did Nazi zombies way fucking better. So, like, maybe don't.
Yeah.
I mean, they won't, but
they might. They made this movie, so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think it's time to move on to the badges section of the show. If you're new around here, we like to hand out merit badges for things we thought films did well instead of doing a 1 through 10 or 5 stars or anything like that. So, if you're watching the video version, they will be on the bottom of the screen right now, all the possible badges we could hand out. They're also pinned on the Discord if you want to check those out. And if you have seen this movie, again, another Discord plug. If you go to our podcast EPS channel and want to discuss this, at this point, it'll be the episode will be posted there. We've got little emojis of all of the merit badges, so you can leave us your little review and then all the little badges if you want. Fun little thing. Okay.
Fun.
Like I alluded to earlier, there's only one thing that I think could keep this movie from getting a sad kangaroo, which is our version of absolutely 0 stars. And that was original deaths. And I feel like I'm going to have to give it to it for that.
I mean...
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong.
An original death, though. It was kind of a head explosion, but yeah, I guess it is an original death.
Yeah.
And I guess...
And the plane, like
I guess that is original.
The mass decapitation.
Yeah, doing it that in scale is...
Yeah. And the great thing about the Periscope is, like, not only did it just come down and explode and, like, you see the girl through it, like, they continue to use the Periscope and the head's just kind of, like, still attached to it.
Yeah, that's where Tom Savini supervised.
Yes.
Yeah, like, right. Can we at least get this fucking right, please?
Yeah, I'll give you 1 minute of my time.
Right.
It's do this longer. Yeah, all right, I'll let you have that one.
Yeah. And then obviously lore.
For the first time ever, I'm going to say they put too much effort into lore and it came back around and bit them in the ass still. Yeah.
All right. So spiritually, it's a sad kangaroo, but it is going to get a badge for original deaths. All right. Well, we did it. We waited all these years. And this is what we have to
be
show for
fair,
it.
I don't know what the fuck we expected. Like, did we really expect much better than that?
Yes, for sure. Because I thought it would be fun and goofy and campy, and it was not any of those. It was trying too hard to make a serious movie about flying sharks and not explaining how sharks fly.
So, also, before we close up, here's the reason I think I had a little more fun watching it than you did. Because a lot of the thing, obviously,
You were drunk.
it wasn't though. I think next time if we ever do a movie like this again, I need to drink beforehand.
I did. It didn't help.
I wasn't like half of the stuff you mentioned that didn't make sense. Like, I didn't think about while watching the movie. Well, think about it now. And talk about
I
it,
couldn't not.
Yeah, like you said it all now. I was like, oh yeah, you're 100% right. I can't argue any of this, but I wasn't thinking about it actively while watching the movie. Like all the lore you talked, I was like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Like, yeah, none of this makes absolutely any goddamn sense. But we're just laughing at how bad some of the things were and the stupid ass lines and whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, the ads were a reprieve, though they were pretty short on mine when I watched it. They're like 20
really
seconds.
Yeah.
And for Voodoo movies, so.
Did you guys both watch on Vudu?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it had ads, but all the ads were for Voodoo, something else to watch on Voodoo, and they were like 20 seconds, except at the very beginning. It was like a minute and a half.
Okay. Mine was the opposite. So I watched it, I think, through Amazon, but then it like funneled me through some other free service.
I think it was Freevee because I went to look at it. Yeah.
And the opening ad was only like 20 seconds, and all the other ones were like 2 minutes.
Oh.
But like I said earlier, I was thankful for it, so I could like shake the cobwebs out and like look at my phone for some normalcy for 2 minutes. But yeah,
for some more graphics.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we did it. Finally saw Sky Sharks. All right. So thanks everyone for checking out the episode. If you're watching on youtube.com @Horror Scouts, let us know what you thought about the film or our comments in the comments below. If you enjoyed the conversation, please subscribe, give us a like. You can also ring the bell if you want to be alerted anytime we post a new episode, which can usually be about twice a month. And if you're listening to the audio version, please rate and review the show on whatever podcast service you use. As far as online goes, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter @horror_scouts. And like we said, please join the Discord. It'd be great. There's a link in the description. We'd love to have you go over there and try to build a little community and talk about anything horror related. We got a spoiler section if you want to dive into something deeper. Or, like I said, just check out whatever new trailers have come out recently. So that'll do it. Thanks again for joining us, gentlemen. It's always a pleasure.
Always.
Likewise.
And we'll see everybody next time. Bye.